RG has an excused absence. And adoption of the agenda. Yes, AJ?
Oh, I was just giving Lauren the thumbs up. It's live streaming.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah, you're doing great, Lauren. Do we want a motion to adopt the agenda? Do we need that? Can't remember if we do.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. All right, any opposed? All right, fabulous. Announcements. I'd like to just touch base quickly about time. And I'd heard from somewhere, Mike, that Tuesdays are difficult evening for you. And is this time difficult for anyone else? I know RG's had a difficult time making it because of work. And Lori, we had Lori. Lori was here. What happened to Lori? Did she? Must have lost her. Okay. So I just wanted to check in with you guys. Maybe I will do this via email or something, but just a show of hands right now. Is everybody okay with the last Tuesday of the month still? Steve, do you have a?
Yeah, I have no constraints. I'm a retired person, so and so any day, weekend or not, or during the week is fine.
Well, that's what we like to hear around these parties.
Yeah, this is fine.
That's great, Steve. Okay, thanks. And any others? Scott, you had your hand raised. You're muted.
Pardon me.
I do it all.
Got a loud dog in the background.
Me too. Yeah,
I can roll with pretty much everything. My preference would be earlier than later. I think I was surprised to see this 6 o'clock start because I think the others are 7, but for what it's worth, earlier is better for me.
I thought that I'd heard from a consensus or majority that people would rather start earlier, rather 6 o'clock rather than 7, but I know that there's other preferences as well. So, but great. I'm glad that works for you, Scott. What about you, Mike?
I have work conflicts on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Tuesdays of the month.
Oh, okay.
And so for our last few meetings, fortunately, there have been 5 Tuesdays in the month, so it hasn't been a conflict.
Oh, okay. So if it's the 5th Tuesday,
Yeah.
but if it's the 4th Tuesday, then it's a problem depending upon how that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do I go to a meeting I get paid for, or do I go to your meeting?
Tough choice.
Tough choice. Scott and Steve and Sonia and AJ, if we switch to another night, I don't want to have any conflicts with any other committees or anything like that, though. So I guess we'll have to look at the schedule.
Maybe we could move to like the first Tuesday of the month if that.
Oh, the first Tuesday.
What did Mike say? I'm so sorry. I was doing.
Mike has a conflict on the
2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Yeah,
Okay.
2nd, 4th, 3rd, and 4th. So in a lot of months, obviously the last Tuesday of the month would probably be on the 4th, depending upon where the first falls in the month, of course. And so that might be something that we might want to consider. Okay.
I think we're fine.
Adam messaged me and said he can't make it. He's got a puppy emergency and.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
so as long as it doesn't conflict with the board, the document review meets during the day. So we should be okay.
Okay. All right. So we'll consider, Mike, maybe switching it. Maybe that would be like maybe skipping July since it's at late June and then touching early August or something like that, perhaps. Or we'll figure that out, I guess, as we go. What do y'all think about that? Would that be too long of a period of not meeting or something if we do that?
Say it again.
Well, if we go to the first meeting of the month, right, that would be like we'd meet next week, right? So the first Tuesday. So if you guys want to meet again next week, we could, or we could just wait until the first August Tuesday of the month.
So we need to somewhere in the middle there, we're going to do like one last strategic planning meeting. to
Okay.
kind of finalize, because that'll help us finish up those, that last part of the survey, you know, because we kind of settled on those performance questions, and we'll repeat those, but we kind of need to, we're at this, we're coming into the budget thing, and so we just want to kind of, you know, tweak those things, figure out what questions do we still need to ask, what do we want to ask on this next survey. And so that's something that, so we could, you know, like go ahead and plan what you're saying, because somewhere in there, we're going to need to meet with the board.
Okay,
too.
that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, since we're all going to be coming back and meeting with the talking strategic planning, that's fabulous. Okay. All right, and then we can reconvene in August and have some really solid ideas about going forward with this comprehensive plan and such, perhaps. So.
Right.
Great. All right, fantastic. Okay, good. Let's do that then. And we'll talk to Adam about that. I assume that'll be okay with him as well. And Lori too. So, all right, fabulous. And let's go ahead and any other announcements? All right. Approval of the minutes. Do we have any minutes this time, or maybe next time we'll hit that again next time. All right. So we wanted to thinking about rekindling these this idea of revisiting the base survey questions, and thinking about whether we need to make any changes right now. And Sonia or AJ or another person, do you want to speak to that quickly? Or I know that we're going to be doing some envisioning in our strategic planning sessions that might cause us to change some of the specific questions. But today we wanted to just think about the base questions, those basic questions that we asked at the beginning of the survey. So it's up to you. Sonia, do you want to speak to this, or?
Yeah, Lori's just saying she's rebooting and just having a problem with her stuff.
Well, we'll be here. So.
Yeah, I think we pretty much ran through it. You're talking about the survey and stuff, you know, because then, and we talked about, you know, those first questions. Everybody had an opportunity to give some feedback on it. We didn't really get a lot of feedback. Everybody was okay with those baseline questions that are the performance measures and stuff. And Steve, we discussed, you know, changing them from, you know, what do you call it, Steve? Like doing it numerically. The
Likert scale or something?
Yeah. And it wasn't coming to me. Sorry. So we'll change it up, but it'll still be a way, you know, we'll still have the same measurements and it'll carry forward, but it'll make more sense.
I was looking at those questions too, and there'll be, there's a potential to be a little bit confusing because the survey, the way it is right now, it does say somewhat, or, you know, I somewhat agree, or I disagree, or strongly disagree, or strongly agree. There are questions that will need to have those responses too as well. So if we do go to the Likert sort of 5-point scale, we'll probably have to modify some questions, I think.
Okay. Yeah, and so other than that, the other part, those are kind of capital questions, and they're also planning questions. And so that's why we're talking about holding off, and let's see what we discover in that last strategic planning meeting for everybody to have input on that and everything.
All right, great. Okay. All right, so yeah, the next part here, let's go ahead to new business, and voting is necessary. And I want to talk a little bit about the bylaws here, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull these up and just show you guys the relevant part that I was looking at. Did anybody get a chance to take a look at our charge? I want to look at one particular section here, and this isn't something we need to develop right now, but it is an important aspect of our charge, is to provide feedback for the board. And if let me go ahead and share my screen here. Share screen. Oh my gosh, why do I have all these things open? I thought I closed everything on my computer, but now it's showing me that I have like 20 things open. Okay, so page 21 talks about our charge, and the responsibilities, the committee shall provide written and oral reports to the board periodically throughout the year, at least once annually. And the committee shall provide to the board the Sudden Valley Community Plan as described above, which we're of course working on. When new boards are elected, no later than the second meeting of that board, leadership from the committee will present current 3, 5, 10-year plans to the new board. And we're working toward that as well. So is there any type of feedback that you, I know we have 3 current board members on here right now, so but is there anything that you all want to bring to the board as long-range planning members, as a committee, that you feel that it would be relevant for the committee to recommend to the board at this moment? And again, this is something we can think about.
One thing, and I brought this up briefly at the beginning of the meeting, and I talked to Sonia about it. And one of when we talked about goals and objectives, one of the things we talked about was safety. And we all saw yesterday very clearly that we have a pretty significant safety issue with having only one point of access for gate 1 and also only one point of access for gate 2. And I would like to suggest that the board look at some alternatives for creating second points of access for those gates. And for gate 1, I know if you head to the end of, what's the main road?
I don't know gate 1 very well.
Yeah, I live here. Anyway, if you take that road all the way out to the end, there's a cul-de-sac. And if you look out beyond the end of the cul-de-sac, you see the airfield, or what was left of the airfield. And to my way of thinking, it would make great sense to extend that cul-de-sac and build the road out to a second point of access for gate 1. And I think I know how to pay for that. And my suggestion would be that as we design that road, we create some additional house lots with frontage on that road. And selling the house lots would more than pay for the cost of building the road.
Yeah.
Get discussion about that.
Well, yeah, I concur. I've always been a safety guy. Do things, whatever you're doing is you consider safety as a priority. So if there's problems of this kind where you can get into trouble, yeah, I think we need to address that, and ignoring them is maybe, especially now with the concerns of climate change and holocaustal fire in the Sudden Valley area. Having only one way out or in is not a good idea. So there's some urgency to this getting done in the somewhat in the reasonable future. And I mean, also, there was a recent, with the heat wave, also there's parking safety issues or fire safety issues associated with the AM, PM and marina beaches and so on. People parking illegally on the road and if the fire trucks had to get in there, that's not going to happen, or it'll be severely made more difficult and may not be possible. So some kind of solution to there was discussion on Facebook Sudden Valley Connection page yesterday, and pictures on Sudden Valley Neighbors and Friends posts of traffic snafus there. So there a number of things were discussed or proposed as possible solutions there too.
So can I jump in there just for a second? Because
Sure.
I think I really want to address that. And Brian, do you mind pull your screen share down while we're talking? So a couple of things. The Facebook is not a good source of fact because I personally was dealing with that, and I can tell you that I spoke with the fire chief. The fire chief has been making the rounds and going through there. We also have been working with security, and security does not need anyone's permission to tow a car. If car is in the road or it's blocking in any way the ingress or egress of a fire vehicle or mail trucks or an ambulance, security has the ability to tow them. They don't need permission from anybody to do that. That's a health and safety issue. There was no health and safety issue. That's why it didn't happen. It was just, this happens every year when it's hot. It's crowded down there. People, it was bad planning. This is one of the things we talk about is, there's this thing about when we're talking about community development too, I'm not disagreeing that we don't need to consider that, and we need to have better planning for how things flow in this community. We don't have really good walkability. Only, the people in the lower gates have easy access to those areas, which then cause this problem. So those are all things that we definitely need to address. I'm not minimizing that. But I just want to be really, really clear that this because there was a lot of spin going on about, this being some kind of liability or safety issue with the overcrowding. And there was never an instance where the fire truck couldn't get in or out. During the incident at Gate 1, Sun Valley had certified flaggers out there basically within less than 5 minutes of the time it happened. The fire chief was on site there and was also the point of contact for that because it was right in front of the firehouse. And they actually had to, take they were actually having to service Sun Valley out of Geneva at that point. He had to relocate everything to Geneva, including his crews and his trucks. So he was the point of contact. And then PSE actually came in with the full trucks within about 40 minutes, and they took over the scene. So what they did in that instance was that we have the entrance, you've got one lane going in, one lane going out. They converted the out lane to 2 lanes. It was just, it was moving slow, but very quickly the traffic was under control. So I feel like, some of this stuff has gotten kind of exaggerated because we've had additional staff out there. Like I said, working with the fire chief, working with security, and literally over the weekend, all of that was blown up on Facebook, and one person called security. So, and it wasn't, they called about something else.
Yeah.
If I can, I think I don't mean to make light of anything that's been said, but we got to remind ourselves of who we are tonight. This isn't a board meeting. This isn't an open forum for, emergency response stuff. Mike, your idea for Windward and extension, there may be a lot to merit to that. As a 4-year resident, I can tell you that there are a lot of safety experts that have studied all kinds of stuff, and it's interwoven with all kinds of agencies. And I have no idea. I lost track of where this community is in terms of the standing committees for emergency preparedness. Maybe the board members can speak to that. But my point is, it's not our job. These threads are interwoven through long-range planning, and they definitely merit discussion. But folks, we got limited time tonight, and this just isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't topical. So I hate to be blunt, but that's one man's opinion.
Well, the other thing is that the safety issues with the parking at the beach areas is the Parks People Committee should be dealing with that, or trying to, that's.
No, it's not, that's not, these committees, I hate to say this, but I actually agree with Scott on some of this stuff. I do also agree with Mike, but there's been one of the things that seems to happen is a lot of our committees, which I think this is why Brian was bringing up what our directives are, is that the committees they're not, the committees, the ad hoc committees are in place to support the board. They don't exist unless the board wants them to exist, and they exist for the purposes to serve the board of whatever the board needs them to do. That's not to say community members can't create their own committees and do whatever, but if you're working under an official committee for the Sudden Valley Community Association, it's the board that governs what that committee is doing. The committee, and so, unfortunately, there seems to be some strange morphing of authority or confusion about authority. Like, I probably shouldn't say this, but ACC is only supposed to deal with parcels, private parcels. They are not supposed to deal with right of ways or green space or anything else. But there, so as time has gone on, people have forgotten their roles, and they don't refer back to the bylaws and actually Robert's rules and all of the standards of the way corporations run. So yeah, that thing. So we want to kind of stay in our lane, which is what Brian was going to talk about. That's not to say, Mike, that our lane isn't some of what you're talking about, and that it's about community development or whatever it's called. That is part of what we have to do. But like I said, I just wanted to kind of go along with that. But yeah, we have to be real careful about those things.
With all due respect to Scott, I'm going to disagree with you on a couple of issues. Number one, Brian introduced this segment of the meeting by asking us what we thought ought to be brought to the board. And this is a significant safety issue that, in my opinion, needs to be brought to the board. Number two is access to each of the gates is a land use issue. And if land use is not part of a long range plan, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think access is obviously an issue we want to have. I think getting some clear guidance from the county on how various scenarios might play out or something too. I don't think our community has a lot of awareness as to how, like, an evacuation type drill for various different, issues would look like. Everyone gets freaked out like there's no way out. Well, Cable Street and Lakeway is a 4-lane road. And when it all moves in one direction, it can move a significant amount of people out of our neighborhood in a very abbreviated amount of time, and with a coordinated effort. But, when was the last time we've communicated with the county on what that would look like, who supports us in that effort between fire and police and public works and county staff in general, and stuff like that. I think the safety thing, I think that's a massive thing of what you're talking about, Mike. I think the scale of what you're proposing. It's not like next year we can build a road through there kind of project. I mean, there's wetlands all through there. We'd have to do quite a bit of scoping of the project to determine what that project would even entail as far as mitigation, permitting, construction costs. I'm not too sure selling a few residential lots going to cover the cost of that project, but I don't know the distance of what we're talking there.
Well, let me ask a kind of a topical question, and it's not a loaded question, but and stay with me here. Among Glenn's prescriptions for restaffing and organization, there was a land use planner, which is the first time this community had ever entertained that staff position. And I never heard.
That's kind of not true, but
excuse me. Well,
we've had people previously that did kind of similar type roles that worked with the county.
Okay.
and
Well,
the
let me better
stuff.
explain myself. I have never been given an explanation. I've never read an explanation for the basis of that staff position, and I don't differ with it. In fact, Mike raises an excellent, case in point but I'm just kind of puzzled because a land use planner does imply long range planning. So this is a long range planning question I'm posing here is, why was that position discussed and where is it going? Is there somebody like that in our future on the staff?
Probably not at this point in time. We're, Glenn is not here any longer. So his,
Mhm.
The contract agreement ends tomorrow and, we're moving forward, with the staffing levels that we have right now. We're, figuring out, how that works and what that looks like. And, we're now looking for a new GM again. And, we obviously have to get, someone back in that role before we're going to start, making any big changes like that.
And there was never an agreement. That was something he wrote. There was no consensus on that.
All right. Well, that really answers my question. If the board dismissed it out of hand, then there's no point in discussing it
there's a
further.
lot of talk about, what else do we need, and a land use planner can maybe provide some of these skill sets, but we have projects in our future. Obviously, we all can see that as we sit here on long range planning. So, what do we need to actually figure out what we need from a position either like that or like the, operations manager type stuff where he can help us plan, help us do capital projects. He can manage contracts. We can get someone who has a skill set to help us maintain our infrastructure, some engineering, contracting, planning skill sets that allow us to kind of, we had some of that in Jacob, and Jacob ended up getting a new job. And, so we lost the person who was kind of stepping into that role a bit. And now we're, trying to figure out where we go from there.
And you may have heard, so there is a new turf care manager that was taken care of pretty quickly. Brian hired someone, but obviously they don't have the skill set that Jacob did. Jacob was here for a long time, and he had the ability to also deal with some of the maintenance and facility type work. So what AJ, I'll just expand on that, is because, it's unrealistic to set these roles without actually looking at the community and what the community needs. And so you can't just go, well, we're going to build this thing and I'm going to plug somebody in there. And it's like, that's not necessarily what we need in that moment. AJ just kind of explained, there's some very special pieces to make this association operate really well. And so we don't want to just have some generic job description of a land use planner, because Glenn thought it would be a good idea when he first started. It's important to have the right fit and the right people for the job. Does that help?
Would it be a committee, Sonia? Like a land use planner committee? Is that what you're?
No, I'm saying that there was no plans for that. That was just something he put on a document. And, there's, as AJ was saying, there's a lot of need for a couple of very skilled positions that are still open that, you have to kind of find those right people, and we have to make sure that they're good for our community and our staff, and if they're going to fill that need. Just create a job description, not where we are. We have almost a full staff. We just have some very special needs in some very special areas, right?
Right.
I just want to say, I want to bring it back to the fact that this, I do feel like this discussion is very good. This is exactly what we want to do. And Steve, your points are well taken. We want to be responsive to the community as much as we were responsive to the surveys, right? We want to be responsive to the moment too, and in a long range planning context. And we don't want to overreact though in a situation where it might be 1 or 2 days. To be fair, we drove by a number of parks yesterday. The Blodell Donovan was madness, and just about any place you go, Deception Pass, and on a busy day is very hard to get in and out. I think every place has difficulties with these parking situations, and I really am glad that a lot of people had the ability to go down to the lake and cool off. Especially all of those of us who didn't have air conditioning. We're able to get down there and cool off in our waters for sure. And we have a lot of people coming down, neighbors from Gate 5 who drive down because it's a couple miles away. It's pretty far, and and it's nice that we all have that lake access. What a great thing that is, and we just have to continue to look at that. And one of the things that I think about when I go to that beach is that those big rocks that kind of block, if there is a block, it would be really interesting to put like an emergency lane there, and you specify it as emergency lane, tollway zone, and have the egress go just through that field, and the fire trucks could get in that way. Of course, yesterday, I don't think anybody would have let anyone start a fire on that beach yesterday when it was 110. But certainly it's a concern, and I appreciate your concern, Steve. And I thought your points were, I read your points on connection, and I liked them a lot. And I really appreciated when you said that it was a complex issue, because it really is. And
Yes.
a lot of times it really can seem intractable as well. And we have to be, just really, we have to make decisions that are for the long term and that are sustainable decisions.
Absolutely. I
Not that we don't hear anybody's pain, we do.
I guess I was indelibly brain damaged by this, witnessing this fiasco on the shore of Lake Erie in the early 80s. And
yeah.
I mean, we were doing, involved in an experiment in the Morton salt mine, underground. And we got out at 4:00 every day from the mine, and it just happened to be Memorial Day. So we decided to go over to the state park beach and to see what was going on there. And we did that, and then we went home back to our motel. But we noticed there was a very thick carpeting of cottonwood fluff on the ground, and noticed people were having barbecues. And instead of saying something to the people there, we left. And then shortly after we left, indeed, the whole place caught fire.
Oh,
and there were so many cars parked, jam parked in there. When the fire trucks could not get in there, so all these cars burned up.
Oh.
And nobody was killed, but all these cars were just totaled.
Yeah.
And it was indeed, we saw the aftermath the next day. So it was horrific.
It's horrific, Steve.
But I agree with you. Yesterday nobody was going to likely be lighting a fire there on the beach, but I remember, with concern of the fire that was there last year, that one night, and that was a windy evening, and there was an extreme fire. Somebody went ahead and did that anyways. So
just takes one person for sure. Yeah, and that's
exactly
an issue.
And
yeah.
There's a what if, and seconds matter when there's a fire like that, as far as getting in there and dealing with it. And if there are delays, well, that can make a significant difference. So
Yeah.
I think it would be good to examine that issue. And
Yeah.
but I concur with everything you said, and I know the other beaches around here are just jam packed, and this is not a problem solely with here. This is, it's planet wide. Everybody wants to go to the beach, and the parking is a problem. So
Guns out, guns out.
Appreciate your comments for sure. What's that, AJ?
Said sun's out, guns out.
Yeah. Well, that's a cautionary tale for sure, Steve, and an experience that you've grown from and moved on, and it's something that I think that that memory itself has not enriched your life, but it's a horrific memory. But something that you can bring to this body as a cautionary tale for sure.
I've had sort of there are long stories. I've had life-threatening experiences, not by choice. I feel like I'm a cat with one life left. I think I have one life left.
Well, let's be careful.
Okay, so I've been thus far, but all in my professional career, I always worried about having, the people that worked under me I worked with, we wanted a safe environment. And so we spent a non-trivial amount of time making sure that nobody was going to get hurt doing what we're doing. So anyway, that's just kind of where I've been coming from over the on issues like that. So if you're made aware of something that's a concern safety-wise, then have a tendency to think about it and try to see if we can reduce the problem. Anyway.
Absolutely, Steve. No, those are all good points for sure. Thank you. Right. And I hear what you're saying too, Mike. I think having two ways out of every gate is I think an important long-range goal, right? It's something that we should be thinking about. How can we do it? How, I'm not sure of that expenditure of how much that would be. And I'm not sure that would happen I'm not sure how it could happen, but if you have a plan, I certainly, you should, definitely, I wouldn't stop you from coming forward with that plan for sure.
I can tell you from experience that I don't think there's a single community I've ever worked for that did not limit the number of houses you could have with only one point of access. And that number is usually around 20.
I feel compelled, just for the benefit of the other three committee members. I've had individual conversations with the board members. I personally feel emergency preparedness in this community is woefully behind. So I absolutely agree with the criticisms and observations that are made. So please don't misunderstand my point of view. It's just, as Sonia said, we got to stay in our lane. As a committee, these considerations will come up as we get farther into the planning process. They have to. Again, they're natural things to be concerned about. But I just want to assure my other committee members that I'm on board with you in terms of a lot of room for improvement. So enough said.
All right. Is there anything else to be said about this? These are all good points, and we'll definitely can report on these to the board when asked next meeting, for sure. And let's
do that.
Sonia, what you don't want me to do?
I'm just like, we're not. There's not. I guess my point was it's like kind of loose talk. I just meant like there's not anything to report.
Well, we're not ready for a plan.
Yeah,
or anything
right.
Like that,
That's what I meant. Yeah.
I think it's important to have for us to have some gravitas and some say though as well. So that's but let's get to the meat of this meeting. Really is the idea of transitioning from strategic planning to comprehensive planning. And Sonia, I don't know if you want me to call up the comprehensive planning part of that document that I have referenced on the committee, or if you want me to do that, Mike, or Mike, if you just want to talk about. We have in our committee a planner by trade, right? Community planner. So that's what a wonderful resource Mike is. So we're hoping that maybe you could speak to this transition, Mike, and give us some ideas, or Sonia, would you like to speak to this first?
Well, I
know
was
both
just
of you
going to
have
suggest that you
some really good
maybe,
ideas here.
yeah, no, I was just going to suggest if you want to run through the plan elements and just kind of go over those real quick. I think they're in your email. Or
I got it pulled up here. So
you
obviously
can,
we
yeah.
have land use planning, as you know, land use kind of touches all of the various elements of the comp plan. You know, I know Mike has been kind of rearing to go and getting to dig in on that stuff. You know, and then our
Do you want to share your screen, AJ?
Sure.
You can probably, I think you can, if you just.
So this document that these are just pages out of that guidebook from the initial the strategic planning guidebook, the first one. I think they're like pages 12 through 15, but that's what that is. If you guys want to reference back to that.
I can tell you that last year I drafted an outline of what the plan might look like, and
you guys see that?
Yeah.
So this is from our strategic planning documentation, but these are kind of the main elements that go along with the Whatcom County comprehensive plan model that we are kind of adopting. And yeah, obviously land use is a major component of it, looking at everything that we have and the zoning, and, you know, Mike can touch more on that. And I think he's already expressed an interest to kind of lead up that kind of work group doing some of that stuff. And then, you know, we're looking at the various different things. You have your kind of community development, economic development, and then your facilities and transportation. You're looking at your capital planning basically there. You have our parks and recreation, our environment, and how all those coexist with one another. And then we kind of have our external stuff, but relevant stakeholders with utilities, you know, housing, any other plan elements that we feel might need to get pulled into, you know, as we move through the process. And then obviously pulling all that in, engaging the community as we move through the process.
Yeah, and if I might add, AJ, all of those elements touch in one way or another on capital facilities planning, because all of those, or most of those, are going to require some kind of an expenditure that the board's going to have to take a look at and establish priorities for. And so, and that, you know, as far as the parts that we're responsible for, we would want to make recommendations to the board on that. The same way the Parks and Recreation Committee would do, same way the Transportation Committee would do. So I think that that's something that we need to look at as part of it.
Just to be clear, we're not creating a bunch of more committees. It's kind of the little work groups that will form amongst our committee to kind of start working on these things and then bring it back to this group.
Right.
And then obviously we make recommendations up to the board of directors.
Yeah.
And, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would like to thank Brian. He asked me if I would share my wisdom on this subject. And I guess my response is I'm happy to share my experience and my knowledge. I think wisdom I'll leave to others. We've got a good start here, and the good start was with the survey, because in my experience, the most important part of any planning effort is gaining the support of the community. And again, in my experience, the best way to gain the support of the community is to let them know that they have been heard. And I think that as we went through the exercise with the survey, and when people see that the survey has had a significant input into the development of the plan itself, people will believe that, thanks, but no. People will believe that that they have been heard. And that doesn't mean that we have to go by everything that we hear and we have to implement everything that someone suggests. If people think that they are fairly heard during the process, then even if the resulting plan isn't something that they agree with 100%, most reasonable people are willing to support that plan because they believe that they were heard, that we listened to their concerns, we considered them as we went through the process. And I think that's critical. And I think that, again, with the survey itself, I think we've shown that to the community. And I think that will become evident as the long-range plan gets developed. I also think it's a good idea, as AJ had suggested early on in the process, that we model this after the county's plan. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First is the State's Growth Management Act pretty much puts counties in charge of planning overall. Every city within a county, every jurisdiction within a county has to have a plan that's consistent with the goals and policies set forth by the county. So I think it's important that we, if any of us have not read the county's plan, that might be a good task before the next meeting, would be to read that and gain an understanding. And the state calls that external consistency, that our plan has to be consistent with the county plan. There's another part of that, and that is internal consistency, which means that the various elements of the plan that we put together don't contradict each other. And, you know, I'm working on an issue right now in another community where they updated their plan and they missed a couple of things that conflict with what they updated. So we're going through the whole process a second time, pretty well needlessly, but necessarily, to make sure that we get rid of all of those internal consistencies. So I think that's an important thing to do.
And that, you know, I just to expand on that, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, you know, of the committees need to, you know, like any committees need to be working together. That's why you work under the direction of the board, so that,
Yes.
that we're all holding hands. And the same goes with, you know, us and staff and the board and staff. You know, we all need to be traveling on that same road in the same direction instead of, you know, everybody, you know, going to their tune. That's why things can't get accomplished, because we don't have shared goals. And, you know, we've been really fortunate to the strategic planning process. I think that we found that we really all do have shared goals, and we need to stay focused on those. And then we need to, you know, keep going in this direction in a way that is sustainable financially. And I think that we're going to have, some of this is also going to involve, I think a lot of people don't understand what that really means, as far as we're, you know, we need to start making more efforts about bringing in grants. You know, we have limited resources as far as how much you can keep going back to the community's pockets. There's only so much debt load they can carry on things. So, you know, the plan has to follow within that, but we're also looking at long term that, you know, is sustainable for now, sustainable for the future. And but we don't do it on backs or at the expense of somebody, you know. So we've, you know, there's a lot of consideration there on that next page too that addresses that. The Sudden Valley, our bylaws actually, you know, which was what Brian pulled up at first, was I think it's on the third page. Our bylaws explain exactly what we're supposed to do. And in it, these mandated focus areas. So they translate into, the county elements, like what you're talking about, because that's a vetted structure. It makes sense to do that for multiple reasons, so that we're aligning with, our joint partners around us. But we'll also still, we need to keep this alignment internal, too, of, to stay true to Sudden Valley and the priorities there too, if that makes sense. So, these things will all be tied together. So, and the same thing, because we have articles of incorporation that dictate the purpose. We have to stay true to that. Or I suppose you could change the articles, but it doesn't make sense to me. But so there are all those elements that you're talking about, and I think somewhere along the line we've got a bunch of people going in a bunch of different directions, and that's caused us to not be able to move forward in a just a efficient, sustainable way. That was a long story to say I agree with you, Mike.
All right. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I think we've got a good start on this. Obviously, we've got a long way to go. And I'm not the one to make these kinds of decisions, but if there are people who want to take specific elements of this and run with them, or to create, if there's a move to create subcommittees to deal with some of these issues, that might not be a bad place to go. And one of the things that I will do is I will revisit the outline that I had put together a year ago, and I'll get it out to Brian, and then Brian, when you think it's appropriate, you can share it with the group.
So it sounds great, Mike. And thanks for your input. And Scott's got his hand up. Go ahead.
Hey,
Scott.
yeah, let me be quick to clarify. I'm not volunteering. Sorry for being dim, people, but I'm really fuzzy on the sequence of events now going forward. AJ's communication to the community a week or a month ago was, stay tuned for public town hall, anyway, forums. There's the survey initiative, the reboot of what we did last year. I think I heard earlier tonight, Sonia, I think you said that there's a third strategic planning session planned. I assume
It's
that's,
just
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's to go over, it's so we can finalize that survey, so that the strategic planning team can just come up with those final things that we want to ask the community. Yeah.
That's helpful.
Capital planning
So-
type questions,
Mhm.
so kind of
And
like the next survey, we have the data that we have from this one. We obviously are going to have additional questions that have come up or that we had for the last one that we didn't address on that one. So the last strategic planning effort would be to kind of wrap that up, get that survey, prepped and ready to go out when we want it to go out. And then we can develop that town hall and what that looks like. We may be able to
Okay.
incorporate it into our budget town hall too, that we're going to have coming up with finance committee and the board, and communications, kind of getting that together. And we're still working on planning that.
Yeah, so that's going to happen, and then as we, and there will be opportunities, but it's just we're at that transition place, and I think that's what I think that's what Brian is and Mike are doing, is just talking about how this part where we're transitioning from the strategic planning, because we do need those. We still have to deliver the community plan, right? And that's what this comp
Yeah.
plan is, right?
Well,
And so-
that's where I was headed with the question is and I understood correctly, there's at least 3 kind of parallel initiatives going on here. And, the board members clearly don't lack for things to do beyond the long range or strategic planning initiatives. So I'm trying to figure out long range committee, what our contributions or expectations are, say, over the next 6 months. And, by my count, there's, I know you hear this every time, there's 4 or 5 of us. How many people are on long range now, outside of the board members?
Well, no, we still have, they're just like a couple of them are working and they're like Richard, with the 2 Richards and stuff. So we still
Yeah,
have
but
them. They
what's
just
the-
can't
what's the head
join
count?
every
There's-
meeting. So, and Adam, I don't know. We're only missing 2 people.
Yeah, we're a couple people down right now.
Yeah, we're
Scott.
Well,
only-
let me ask, I was surprised to see in the blast that just, came out an hour ago, 2 hours ago. The board of directors vacancies are identified, the ACC committee vacancies are identified, but we don't, at long range, there's no vacancies identified. And I thought we were still short 2, if
2.
not 3 people.
Yeah, we're just short 2. And
Okay, well, that's the
yeah.
answer, 2.
Yeah, we need to advertise that a
Yeah,
bit
we
better,
should.
probably.
That should be
Okay.
advertised for sure. I'll make
That's
sure
on
that gets up,
Brian.
Scott.
No.
Yeah, it's my bad. I did think it was advertised, but maybe it hasn't been. So
But
I will
one
contact
of
the folks tomorrow and we'll get it on there.
I mean, I think the main focus here is we need to start to get the community comp plan, put together. That's, the bylaws tasks, that's our main task. And, we took a bit of a sidestep with the big strategic planning team effort. And, that was needed to revisit the mission vision, to establish those values that we're going to build now our comprehensive plan off of those strategic priorities that, we put in the views and that we set, at our last strategic planning team are going to be overarching principles we need to consider here as we build out these various elements of our community plan.
That said, too, I feel really comfortable with the folks who are here right now in this room, and also the people that are absent as well. We have a wealth of talent and experience here, and we can do this work, and we've been doing the work, and so I think we're
a lot of
doing a
this
good job.
a lot of this is some of the stuff is already in place, especially on that in column, housing, utilities and stuff, a lot of that, but this is a 3-year cycle. It's like what we talked about anyway, and I know it looks overwhelming, Scott, but we'll heavy duty focus on. We obviously can't do all of these in 1 year, like just drill down on them, but we can prioritize the parts that we really need to spend more time on. Some of them really, they're at this point in time kind of limited, and we just determine, like there's information that we want to put in about transportation. There's information we want to put in there about utilities and housing, et cetera. But those aren't going to really take us a lot of time. We'll pull from their comp plans and the parts that impact Sudden Valley directly. Does that make sense? And so it's a little more palatable, and we plan that calendar out once we kind of prioritize, but we, of setting this up. So, but
I really like that idea, Mike, of reading the county plan. If you all have time, we should definitely work toward doing that before the next meeting, which would be the first Tuesday of August now in our new plan here. And then in between, we'll all meet for a strategic planning meeting as well.
Is
I
that
think
on
that
their,
would give everybody a strong background.
I think
do they
so.
ha-
Yeah.
We can pull a link from Whatcom County's website and send it to the committee so you guys
Great.
have it
That
accessible.
would be nice. Thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you.
And it's, it can be a bit overwhelming because it's a large document, but there's, it can kind of give you an understanding of the type of things, information we need to start collecting and pulling together into one place. And then, what sort of wording and actual like written documentation we will have to start kind of putting together. Because like Sonia said, some of it's just kind of pulling from the Whatcom County comp plan, and then pulling from other resources and just kind of pulling all this stuff into one place so that it's not like, wait, how do we handle this situation and where do we find that information? And, all of the, and so like,
So I think
I would recommend that, like, not getting too much into like subcommittees and stuff like that. But if like one person, can kind of take ownership of some things and the second person is working with them and kind of maybe one or two people are kind of working on a section, with keeping Brian in the loop on things, and then we kind of coordinate back with the committee as we start to put things together. And, some stuff can be worked on and wording can be created via email and things like that. Not everything has to be like built in the committee, but as we start to put things together, we have to,
So I would
Right there.
like to, for no one person to work on any one thing.
well, yeah,
Because
no, I was saying,
so
like,
yeah, it needs to be a minimum of 2 people,
Yeah.
because or we can lose the work pretty easy. So
One of the things that I would suggest as people are reading through the county's comp plan is to take a look at the goals and policies that they've established. And then as you look at those, go back to the survey results, and on the basis of our survey results, we establish goals and policies for us. So again, with the idea of internal and external consistency, we should, as a priority, make sure that the goals and policies that we've established for Sun Valley are not in conflict with the goals and policies established by the county.
exactly, and that's one of the things, and I mean, we probably won't be able to do all of it this year, but that's actually one of the things that document review is going to be checking on all of that to make sure that and there's a lot of changes also in state law right now. There's a new that we were formed under 2403. 2403 has basically been repealed and replaced completely. So there's a lot of changes that we need to go back through our stuff and make sure that we're reflecting current law that's appropriate to us, and also, like you say, that we're that we're consistent with everything. Yeah, it might take a while. I don't know if we can get that all done this year. We can start though.
We'll have that done by next month.
next month. Do we want to establish teams now, or should that be something maybe that we should wait on until after the next planning meeting, perhaps, and do this in early August? Does that make sense to everybody? And for early August or for the next planning meeting, perhaps we all should try to read that county plan.
So what we can do, because we actually have those documents, we had an initial sheet for the task groups, but then we got the survey kind of sidetracked us. But there is a task group sheet that talks about
Right.
This is what we need, like those initial gatherings under each of those elements. So I think it would be good. We're going to have to do that anyway. Obviously, so I don't see. I mean, if anybody wants to start, we can go ahead and start on those pieces, because some of that's just information gathering and everything. I think it'd be good to go ahead and do that. If anybody does do it, you need information from the association, you'll need to go through Brian or AJ, not direct to the staff, but yeah, you can just let them know if you need, like I'm working on whatever, everything about parks and plans or whatever, then they can go and request all the planning and everything that's, that the association has related to that, or, that kind of thing.
Why don't we do this? It might be a good idea to send out the various responsibilities, and then we can volunteer to if anybody's willing to volunteer during this time for the next few weeks, to volunteer for a particular type, like somebody's interested in parks, like Sonia said, or capital or something of that nature, and some other recreation or any of those, any of the elements, capital planning.
Would anybody be surprised if I volunteer for land use?
Land use planning.
I would be more than happy to do the facilities and transportation related stuff. We're gonna be, I think that's kind of in my wheelhouse.
I'd be happy to do parks and rec, and then maybe Adam would pitch in as well. Perhaps I don't want to volunteer him.
Yeah, that would be awesome because he knows what the, like the plans that those master plans and stuff that have been in place. So can you pop that list back up? Because I can't
let's
even
get that.
remember it. I'm sorry.
I can do it. That was my thing too. Yeah, it's facilities. I can share mine, or you.
Oh, there
okay.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Community development, facilities.
So you're talking, AJ, what did you say?
I mean, I'd be more than happy to work on the transportation related stuff and then facilities,
Okay.
you know, that
I
kind
could
of
take
goes
that
in my
whole-
wheelhouse with capital planning and project
Actually,
management.
that whole tab over there, I would be happy to take parks and rec and environment as well. And,
Okay. And Mike's going to just take the header land use that touches everything.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
And I'll include housing with land use.
Okay.
so land use. Okay.
Land use isn't on the list here, but
So ideally too, what we, let's try to partner up too and buddy, because, primarily because if somebody gets sick or something happens, and then that way we're not losing the work, right? So let's just try to, once we kind of have the lead on each of these, and let's try to like at least, buddy up with somebody else so that we can make sure that, we've got
Sure.
another person. So I can fill in wherever. I'm just waiting for everybody else to decide.
Yeah, me too.
You pick parks and
Well,
rec and environment.
If anybody wants it really badly, I would defer to them.
I think Adam would be good with that too. I think he'd like that.
I think he will.
Yeah, he's already been, working on some of that stuff too with them. So
Yeah.
So community engagement is actually a category itself. Community development is not what a lot of people think it is. Mike knows what that is, which I actually like. Personally, I'll take either one of those. I would prefer to take both of, like community development, economic development, but since this is information gathering, more than happy to just fill in wherever. So anybody else?
And the rest of you can think about it.
Yeah, I don't mean to sit on my hands here. There's many things I would love to contribute to. I need to balance availability over the next few months, to be honest, for personal reasons, and that's why I was pressing for kind of the sequence of events, pressing for the head count, just trying to figure out the division of duties realistically. Some personal decisions. So I'm going to ask respectfully the group that, Brian, if you would do as offered, maybe send out the invitation.
Absolutely.
And let us respond when we can.
Yes, I will do that for sure.
And keep in mind, this is literally information gathering. So yeah, don't get stressed and you're not going to get locked into this category. I'm just putting that out there. So a lot of this we can get done pretty easy. So don't worry about that, guys. It's summertime, what I mean? Everybody's got family commitments and stuff too. It's fine. This is just the start of it, right? So, okay, we'll just do that. We'll just move forward.
Sounds good. I'll send an email around and we'll have a sheet, a sign up kind of sheet, and I'll have everybody signed up for the things that I think that we agreed to today. And if I'm mistaken, please let me know. And it sounds like we have a good start. And Lori, I want to add, it's really nice to have you here tonight.
That's
And,
my problem, kind of also, is committing myself to any specific thing because of an issue I have with my mom.
Okay.
So I must admit, I don't understand a lot of this still, and Sonia's been helping me. I would like to be put on anything where I'm needed. Sonia might help me with that also. And I kind of go from there, but I'm very interested in being on a committee.
Okay.
And
Thanks, Lori.
community engagement. It's just that I don't want to get tied up in something that I can't. And I'm going to leave you in the lurch. So, but I'm happy to do whatever I can.
Fantastic. All right.
And yeah, I want to make it really clear because it's something we've talked about, but these committees and this commitment and volunteering for our community cannot get in the way of our lives and our families. And so we know that. And that's why, like Richard Henderson, he works, just like Mike's had to miss meetings. And so, we've got to have some flexibility with people and still allow them the opportunity to participate and everything. And so that's something that's a big goal, I think, that at least I know AJ, Brian, and I have, because there's a lot of people that are really have a lot to contribute, and they just can't necessarily do it inside this box of this meeting, like every month or whatever. So I just want to say that to both Lori and Scott. You know what I'm saying? You both contribute a lot. And so it's fair enough to say, well, okay, I'm not sure on this part of it, right? And because I think that that's part of the problem with people volunteering. They feel like they got to like commit their whole selves to and all of their time. And it's like, we've got to find a better way to do this and respect people and their family time too, while we're working for the community.
I think that's part of what we're trying to set up to make it easy for people in the future to kind of do these tasks, and we're trying to do the work when we can, if and do it when we're able to do so. And I appreciate you all being here for sure, and contributing to this conversation. All are fabulous. Do we have anything else to say for the good of the order here? This might be a Sudden Valley meeting that was only 75 minutes, perhaps, but let's see.
I sent everyone a link to everyone's email. So, over the next, if any of these any of these elements, interest you and stuff, most of them are, directly related to an element, in the link that I sent you. And so you can spend some time, you can focus on that one. The Whatcom County Comp Plan is hundreds of pages of stuff. Because there's all these different chapters. So, no one expects you to read it cover to cover or anything like that. Let's just, but
there'll be a test at the next meeting.
If there's an area that interests you in particular, look through that area more in depth. And like Mike said, look at the policies they're setting and look at the goals they're establishing and, read some of the language. Look at the maps and stuff that they put. Every section has like maps and figures and stuff that go along with it. A lot of that stuff is the stuff we just have to like pull the information together. It's, there's not like all this like, oh, we have to write like hundreds of pages ourselves and stuff like that. It's, it's not quite that complicated. So I think if everyone over the next week or two can kind of dive into one of those sections in the comp plan, and really get an understanding of where it is, and it'll take you to other places too, more likely. If like you look into the land use one, it's going to reference you into probably other sections, and it'll tie into other things, and other sections do that as well. They commingle and things like that. And you can look at I think one important thing to look at in the comp plan is you can go into the appendices. They have countywide planning policies, you know, and looking at some of that stuff. Our planning and our policies from the board and like everything are they don't get reviewed regularly. That's something we're making a push to like work on, you know, this year. And, you know, there's a lot of other stuff to do in the process too, and document reviews, working on some of those comprehensive policy manuals, but looking at, they got capital facilities plans and capital improvement programs. You know, those things are important to kind of look at, and just, you know, they can help you understand kind of some of the magnitude of the things we might need to put together here eventually.
And one more thing. So, you know, we came up with those, the priorities, right? The strategic priorities, our core values. So, and I'll put together, I meant to do that, but I'll put together a checklist. So we're not going to include anything, just like the board isn't going to take a vote that doesn't somehow attach to one of those values. We're not going to put anything in this, in our comp plan that cannot attach to one of those identified core values of our community. So that's going to help with the consistency too. We're not going to spend money on things that are outside of those core values. You know, we have to basically go, how does this fit? How is this, let's say, sustainable? Or does this contribute to collaborative community or inclusiveness and that type of thing? And so it's real important that nothing, you know, we're going to keep that across the board, right? That these are our priorities, these are the actions, and so whatever's in that plan, something will need to attach to that, or we're not going to put it in that plan. Same thing for moving forward with our budget and everything. If you can't justify that's part of our purpose or it's part or one of our core values, you know, we're not going to do it. We can't do it. So I hope that makes sense.
And also, AJ raised another important point too. As you're going through the particular element that you're the most interested in working in, kind of take a look to see how it relates to the other elements, because they all tie together. So no matter how much work we might be doing individually over the next couple of months, we're going to be doing a lot of talking back and forth too.
Yeah, and we'll put together, we can send back out a little package that, and put together kind of like a little bit of a checklist of what we kind of, you know, the basic general things we need to do for each plan or each element. And then each element has some specifics, you know, that we'll have to address as we move through it. But we'll start with like that basis, you know, and everyone can kind of get comfortable in understanding what we're putting together. And I think that'll help. You know, we can send back out the mission, vision, core values with it and stuff, and you can have it all kind of there in one package.
Yep.
Right. Does anybody else have anything to add before we go to property owner comments? Right. I'm not sure if Lauren's going to pop back in. John usually does, but I'm not sure if I can. Thanks, Lauren. Awesome.
Okay. All right. We have 2 attendees.
Got a couple people.
Raise hand feature. Like to come over for property owner comments.
Awesome. Give them a couple seconds here. Doesn't. What do you think? You want to call it, Lauren?
Yep.
All right.
I think it's about.
I think we gave them enough time. I appreciate them being here for sure.
In that case, I have something very important to say. Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Right. All right.
All right.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:21. Thanks, everybody. Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Good one.
You'll be hearing from
Be in
us via
touch.
email.
Bye.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good night. Stay cool.
Yeah.